In this next section, I just want to give you some tips with regards to writing your own beats. I think the most important thing for me is that writing something means creating something. So it's a creative process, and creative processes are always subjective. So there are no rules. There isn't a rigid formula that you can follow to create something good. It'll always be subjective. If you're writing drumming or percussive parts in a band context, i.e. with other musicians, then sometimes something that you think sounds friggin' redonkulously awesome might not be perceived as such by the people around you. So the bassist might think your kick pattern sucks and you think it's awesome, but the thing is, it is a collaborative process, so it is very subjective. It's art, essentially, so there are no rules, there isn't a rigid formula. So don't let that hold you back. It should be a creative process, it should be a little abstract, it should be really subjective. That's the way that it's going to happen. So just be aware of that. Don't get emotionally and personally involved in the stuff that you write. Like I said, especially with regards to a band setup and playing with different musicians, everybody needs to be able to give an opinion, and the song is what needs to be served, not your ego, but the song. So if a certain part doesn't serve the song, if the guitarist who wrote the main riff doesn't feel that your beat complements it as much as he would like to, then kind of just suck it up and be humble enough to say, okay, cool, let's try something else. Let's try to write something that's better. So you need to have that approach when writing original material. I think something that's also really important is the sentence that goes, less is more. You must have heard that somewhere down the line. A lot of people say less is less, or less is a bore, or kind of really advocating playing more, but I personally feel that sometimes simpler is just better. I love trying to complement a riff or a song or a verse or a bridge or a chorus with as few notes as possible. If a 16-note pattern complements the verse brilliantly, then why would you play a 32nd note pattern? Why would you add extra notes to the mix? It just makes sense to me to kind of just put the right amount of salt on the food, kind of just to get it just right. Don't overkill, and that's always my goal. Just with the least amount of strokes, to keep it as simple as possible, with the simplest pattern, just to complement the riff or the song as much as possible. So I think that's a really mature and a really disciplined approach. It's very hard, it's very difficult, especially if you're just starting playing. I think anybody who's seen my videos on YouTube will know, in the beginning I overplayed like a madman, just added fills everywhere, and hopefully now it's kind of a bit more mature, and it's a little bit more tasteful, hopefully. So I try to complement it with as few notes as possible now, but I didn't back then. So you'll definitely grow into it, but just keep that in the back of your mind. Another cool tip is to follow the bass line. This counts for when you're playing with a band, with an actual live human being bassist, or also just a track, just playing along to tracks in your iPod. Listening to the bass line is really important. I've mentioned this a few times before. I think it's really, really important to realize that the bass drum and the bass guitar, they usually operate in the same frequency level in the mix, so it's really important that they are aware of each other. I'm not saying every single bass note must be accompanied by a bass drum stroke, or vice versa. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying they need to be aware of each other. I've also said that that's kind of what connects the exclusively rhythmic, which is the drumming or the percussion, to the exclusively melodic side of the band, which is usually rhythm leads, or the vocalist, or keyboard players, stuff like that. The bass drum and the bass guitar are kind of connected at the bottom, and they form this connection between the rhythm and the melody. So that's really important to stay on the bass line. Just be aware of each other rhythmically. So when you're writing drumming or learning drumming, it's really important to stay aware of that and to listen to the bass line. In the same way that it's really important to listen to the bass line and kind of get that connection going, that little bridge going between you and the melodic side of the band, it's also really important to listen to the melodic side of the band. Don't disregard that, especially with regards to creative and melodic fills on the kit and melodic beats on the kit. That's my approach. If I play a groove, I try to write something that still communicates with the bassist and kind of still represents the rhythmic and the groove and the pocket side of the song. That still represents that, but it also communicates the melody of the song and kind of just connects to the melody and hopefully complements the melody a little bit. So you have to stay aware of that. You have to stay aware of what the lead guitarist is playing, or what kind of melody line the keyboardist may be playing, or especially what the vocalist is singing. And I'm talking about like rhythmic pronunciation, that kind of stuff, as well as the actual melody line. I'm not talking about following the melody line with your cymbals. It shouldn't be that rigid. I'm just saying stay aware of the melody and kind of try to complement that with the kit. Just try to communicate that with the kids. So those few points are some of the stuff that I try to keep in mind when I'm writing drumming with an actual band with live human beings, or when I'm listening to a track playing from an iPod or an iPhone, or something that's already been written, like an actual song, trying to learn the parts. I see that as the exact same technique, being creative in writing parts and being creative in learning parts. So I hope this means something to you guys.